Hello everyone, welcome. Good afternoon. Great to be here once again, dedicating a little bit of time in the afternoon to study Torah. Good for the soul. It's good for the soul, and actually we are fulfilling a mitzvah, the mitzvah Talmud Torah, to study Torah. We have an obligation to connect with the Word of God to nourish our souls. And welcome. Who's in the chat today? I say hello before to Michael Legov, Andrea Arroyave, Sarah Bloomberg. Great to know that you are recovering. Shelly Chochinov is here. And I will tell Leslie Emery hi from you. Yes, of course, Sarah. Yeah, but great to have you. You see, this is the magic of the internet. Sometimes we want to go in person to different events, but look, you're probably stuck at home. And I feel blessed that I had the opportunity to accompany you somehow with this class. So I hope you feel our presence. We are all with you, Sarah, this moment. Who else is in the chat? If you are logged in on YouTube and Facebook, say hello. I want to know who is on the other side. I see the numbers going up on my screen. Remember that whatever number you see on your screen is not the number that I see on my screen, because I always have the combination of multiple channels in one window. And we are streaming on 3 channels. We are streaming in the Shari Zedek YouTube, Shari Zedek Facebook, and on my own Facebook. So I welcome you all. Hello, Karen Farkas. Welcome. Here you are. Very nice. Very nice. Priscilla is not here. Maybe she didn't have a break today. She's a busy woman. Lots of patience. Kerry Dwen. Hello, you changed the name. Oh, you're on Facebook. You're on Facebook. Yeah, I think the YouTube is the one that you have a different name, right? Is it Kerry Dwen? YouTube is the one you have a different name. Then sometimes I have to push myself to remember that it's you. But I guess you see, Facebook works just fine. Just fine. And yeah. Okay, great to have you all here. We're going to study Parsha Vayechi. And we are, this is the interesting thing with this Parsha. We are wrapping up the book of Genesis. Okay? This is the last Parsha of the book of Genesis. If you come to synagogue this Saturday, you're going to hear that at the end of the last reading, at the end of the Shevi'i, we're all going to say Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek, which is the expression that we reserve only at the end of each book of the Torah when we read the Torah in public. So if you want to witness that occasion, please come to Shari Zedek. Or actually, I'm hoping every synagogue will do that. This Saturday at Shari Zedek, we have, the doors are open. If you're double vaxxed and you can prove it, you can come to services. No registration is necessary. There is no bar mitzvah, so everybody is welcome. There is no problem. But of course, we always stream. We always stream everything we do. We love streaming. Hi, Judy. Judy Shorak is here with us. Great to have you. Yeah, Andrea, you can come with your kids. It's used to be the time with Shari Zedek, you wouldn't be able to come with kids because they would be always giving you a dirty look. Shh. Those were the days when people used to come to synagogue to enjoy a concert. It used to be all about the cantor and the choir. Those days are gone. Now we do the service together. I truly feel that we do it together. It's a different atmosphere. So if you have kids, and come to synagogue. Come to synagogue. It's great to have you all. And now, and remember, you see, the other day we were talking among the staff at the Shari Zedek how this class, the Torah L'Chaim, some of you probably probably don't even remember, but Torah L'chaim used to be on Saturdays after Kiddush. Used to be the service up to 10 to 12. Then 1 hour of Kiddush, we will eat together, and immediately after, we will have the Torah L'chaim. And then after COVID, we did that. Let's see. Something that's important. Okay. Let's continue. And yeah, Sophia can dance in the bima. Don't worry. Oh, Sarah, you discovered Amichai. Amichai. They have a very good service. Yes, very musical service. Okay, so let's start with the Parsha for today. Remember, Vayechi, end of the book of Genesis, and you can imagine when the story is wrapping up, one of the things that you're going to discover is all the people that we learn to know and to love, all the patriarchs, their children, the matriarchs. In this one, the last generation dies. It is part of the reality, right? It's the end of the book of Genesis. The last one was Jacob, the last patriarch. He dies in Egypt. And then eventually, if you keep reading, you will see that all his children also died. And eventually, then we are going to move to the book of Exodus. We all know what happened. This is a new generation, a new Pharaoh, and they are going to be slaves. But don't rush it. That is going to be next Thursday. But now, let's see what happened with this parsha. So we are going to talk about the death of Jacob, the death of the last patriarch. And it's interesting because it's presented in a slightly different way than the death of the previous patriarchs like Isaac and Abraham. We're going to study that. And also a few other things that we learn just from this verse, for example. And also other things that we learn about funeral practices, that they are coming also from this parsha and other episodes of the life of Jacob. Okay? But let's go apart. Let me read it for you. Who is here? Phyllis Laveman is here. Hello. The page looks different. What do you mean it looks different? I'm always using the same thing. Different good or different bad? I don't know. It's always me and the text. Just here. So, okay. So it says, and the days of Israel, again, Israel here, screen sharing? I'm not screen sharing. I use a different trick to show my screen. It's called virtual camera. One day, Sarah, if you want, I can teach you what I do. Okay, it's the next level. The chat is there. I don't know. I can see the chat. Okay, so it says the days of Israel. Israel here is Jacob. Israel here is Jacob. It's the name of Jacob. Remember when Jacob fought against the angel all night? Remember that story? And then the angel said, your name is not going to be, it's not Jacob anymore. Now it's Israel. So, Israel. So that's what it said. The days of Israel is not talking about the people of Israel. It's talking about Jacob, our patriarch. Okay? And the days of Israel drew near to die. He's about to die, Jacob. So he called for his son Joseph and said to him, if you truly love me, please put your hand under my thigh and do me a kindness and truth. You will not bury me in Egypt. He wanted to be buried in the same cave that was purchased by Abraham. I love this because we are wrapping up the book of Genesis, and this parsha is going to make reference of previous episodes. So you really need to know your Bible to understand some of the things that they're happening here, because they are making reference to things that happened in the past. Okay, so Phyllis, I'm thinking that if you cannot see the chat, maybe you have to expand the window. Maybe your window is too narrow. You know, this kind of trick that you can maximize the screen, so maybe the chat will pop up in that case. Before I forget, I wanted to say that. Okay, so that's what number one we learn from here. Jacob said to Joseph, "Don't bury me here, bury me," and it's implied that we said is, "I want to be buried with Isaac and Abraham, the same place, and with the matriarchs there." Remember, the matriarchs were also buried there, all except for Rachel. Rachel is buried somewhere between just before entering the land of Israel, when Jacob was coming back from the house of Laban. She died. And you can go in Israel to visit that place. Okay, so let's continue. There are a few things that said, "Put your hand under my thigh." What is this thing of "put your hand under my thigh"? Who knows this? Who knows what he's talking about here? I want to give you a minute so you can give me your best guess. What is that? What part of the bodies are we talking about here? You're going to love this one. No guesses? Okay, I will tell you what I learned about this. In Hebrew is Sim na yadecha tachat yerehi. Yerehi. Here is translated under my thigh. And I know this is going to sound a little gross. Nope, it's not lift him up. No, that's not. It looks like historically what it is, and I'm not joking. I'm not joking. The idea is you have to hold the testicles of the other person. I'm not joking. This is true. It seems that that used to be the sign of an oath or a vow. Okay, and you are supposed to put the hand there. There is a theory that the word, for example, testament, is coming from there. The word testicle. That used to be a way of making a promise or a vow or an oath. When the other person will ask you to put the hand there. I'm not understanding fully why that symbol, but that's what it is. This was a solemn or a serious promise that Jacob was requiring from Joseph. So that's what he did, because that was the practice. Yeah, very COVID friendly. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess if we can take a time machine and go to those days, we will be surprised of many things that we wouldn't find. Connecting to life force. I don't know, but that's what it is. So this is exactly what it said. Otherwise, it said, "What is asking? Put the hand under my thigh." Well, now you know where, and do a kindness and truth. This is kindness and truth. Look at the words in Hebrew. I will highlight it here. It said chesed ve'emet. What does it sound like? What does it sound like? I'm pretty sure if you live in Winnipeg or in any other city with a big Jewish population, you are probably familiar with this concept. Most likely it's going to be an institution with a name similar to that. What is it? What is it? I will give you a minute to type that one, because I'm pretty sure that many of you already know what I'm talking about. What am I talking about here? At least say I don't know, so I won't wait. No? I will continue with the next text. Meanwhile, keep thinking. I will bring what Rashi says about it. Rashi says, kindness and truth. Chesed shelemes, Phyllis Leibman. Yes. Absolutely. Yes, Karen, you guess it as well. Chesed shelemes. Chances are, if you live in a place with a Jewish community, that the funeral homes run by the Jewish community, I'm not talking about private funeral homes. Usually, the funeral home that is run by the community of the place is called Chesed Shel Emes, Chesed Shel Emet. That is coming from this concept, Chesed Ve-Emet, and the two concepts are connected. Because the burial societies are usually called Chesed Shel Emet. Chesed Shel Emet. Shelley, you said that too. Okay. So Rashi says, this a kindness done to the dead is a true kindness, for one does not expect a favor in return. And this is absolutely fundamental for each one of you to understand why the name Chesed Shel Emes is universal. Why virtually every burial society from Jewish communities all around the world are called Chesed Shel Emes. Because according to the rabbis, the chesed, the kindness that you do to a dead body is the highest level of kindness that you can do on this earth. Why is that? Because there is an understanding that every time you do something for somebody else, there is a retribution. There is some form of payment for what you do. And when I'm saying payment, I'm not talking about money here, because sometimes when somebody says thank you to you, oh, you're so nice, you're so great, well, now you have a good feeling that comes from those words, and the rabbis understand that those words that they were said to you serve as some form of payment or retribution for your good action. Even a recognition of what you did, even if it's not verbal, exists. But it says, when you do something for someone that cannot repay you in any way or form, it's a dead body, can't do anything for you. Of course, the family can, but the person cannot. Then the rabbis call that act true kindness. True kindness, real kindness. The word kindness, it implies that you are not expecting anything in return, which sometimes happens, or most of the time happens, without you expecting it, but it happens. So that's why the only time that we use this word, Chesed Shel Emes or Chesed Ve-Emet, is when we talk about a dead body. Karen, you said, isn't that why we all share in burying the body by shoveling the dirt? Yes. Yeah, there is a tradition that when you go to a Jewish funeral, everybody takes the shovel and put a little bit of dirt on top of the coffin. And that is because that is the only opportunity that we have to fulfill to perform an act of Chesed Shel Emet. It's the only time we can do that. So that's why when we go to the cemetery, because we care about fulfilling mitzvot, we participate of the burial, because that is beyond regular kindness that we do during all the other days. Yeah, very good. Now let's talk a little bit about that, a little bit more. Something very interesting that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said about this. It says the Midrash relates that when God desired to create man, truth as an individual, right? This is a Midrash. This is a Midrash, okay? Let's use our imagination. Truth argued that he should not be created, for he is full of lies. Truth cannot lie, and truth is saying, hey, this is what I observed. You create a human being, God, I won't sugarcoat it to you. You should know that that person is going to lie. We all lie one way or another sometimes, unfortunately. It's part of human nature. We try not to, but hey, the ability of lying is there. Kindness, however, said, he should be created, for he is full of kindness. To this, truth might have replied, but that too is just another man's lies. Yes, man does act of kindness to his fellows, but not because he's full of kindness, only because he expects them to be kind to him in return. So this is a very interesting, because this is going into the psychology of kindness. Even I will say the psychology of guilt, of why when we are not doing an act of kindness, we feel guilty. When we can help somebody on the street, but we don't. we feel guilty. Why do we feel guilty? There are theories of why we feel guilty at that time. One of the theories is very interesting, very thought-provoking, and it is because the thought that we have at that moment, even if it's not conscious, is, well, I feel lucky that it's him and not me there. And then you don't help the person, and you feel that there's somebody not helping you. You project that. You know what I mean? This is all beyond this class, but it's a part of the psychology of kindness. And this midrash is already talking about that thousands of years ago. This topic was discussed. Okay, let's continue. However, there is one act of kindness that proves truth wrong. The kindness done to the dead. This kindness and truth, as the Torah calls it, shows that man is capable of a truly altruistic deed, thereby attesting that all of our acts of kindness, even though superficially tainted by selfish motives, are in essence true, deriving from an intrinsic desire to give of ourselves to our fellows. So, Phyllis Leibman, I love what you said. It's not dirt that we are covering the grave. It's earth. I know. I used to say earth, and people corrected me. They said, no, you're supposed to say dirt. And I went nuts with this. Makes me crazy. So I went to hear what other rabbis said during funerals. So I play videos of other rabbis who, English is their first language. What did they say at the funeral? And they use the word dirt. So that's why I started to use the word dirt. But I wish, if you tell me that I should use the word earth, I take it as the word of a scholar, and I will start using it in funerals. And if somebody asks me why, I will say, Phyllis Leibman told me that I should use earth. Just confirm that, please, Phyllis, that you're okay with that. Because I would love to go back and use the word earth. Okay, so let's go back to this. And it says basically that kindness is part of our nature as well. But the thing is, when we do an act of kindness, the nature of that act is not always clear. It's not always clear. Okay? Probably in the eyes of God, it is clear, but not for us. That's what this rabbi is trying to say, except when we do an act of kindness for a dead person. Okay? That's what I wanted to mention. So, more about kindness. Because Pirkei Avot, this is from the Mishnah, they will say that the world rests upon three things: Torah study, divine service, prayer, sacrifices in the past, right? Prayer, and upon the practice of chesed, loving kindness. So, kindness should be a very important part of our daily routine. And why is that? Because it's one of the pillars of the world. So, what things should be part of a daily routine? Well, Torah study, prayer, and kindness. Prayer is, I will say, out of the three, is the one that is more clear in Jewish practice, because the rabbis establish 3 services per day that you have to daven, you have to pray 3 times a day. It's established. We have specific times to do it. Most synagogues do that. Shari Zedek, 7:30 in the morning, you are going to have the morning service. 6 p.m., you're going to have afternoon and evening service back to back. But as for Torah study, it's almost like it's up to you. And chesed is also up to you. Many synagogues try to combine the 3 in the sense that many synagogues are what is called the Beit Midrash, that basically they study until it's time to pray. So they already combined the 2 pillars, Torah study and prayer. And the third one, which is the practice of chesed, is fulfilled by this kind of tzedakah box that is always there I don't know if you go to synagogue, there's always a tzedakah box, and then people put money before prayers, so they feel they combine the three, the study, the prayer, and some kind of act of chesed by giving something to somebody else. Okay? Shelly, let's see. Okay, so I should go back to earth. Thank you, guys. Sarah says soil is better, but it's all the same. Earth. Okay, but I said, guys, again, I used to say earth, and somebody said that now look, people say dirt, and because English is not my first language, I took it as a correction. I started to say dirt as well. I'm gonna go back to earth. I have a funeral tomorrow. That will be the first time that I'm gonna use it. So let's continue. Rabbi Simlai expounded the Torah, and this is kind of a proof that the Talmud brings as to why Chesed is so important, why kindness is so important. Because Pirkei Avot, and let me go back to here. Pirkei Avot presents this thing. The world rests upon three things: Torah, service, and Chesed. Wonderful. What's the proof? Do you have any proof to sustain that statement? You can say, well, God said so, fine. But there is anything else that it will prove it? Well, the Talmud will expand on the concept and say, this is my proof. Rabbi Simlai expounded. The Torah begins and ends with Chesed. At the beginning, we learned of God Chesed for Adam and his wife when he made clothing for them, and at its end we are told of God Chesed when he buried Moses. Remember, Adam and Eve, one day they figured out they were naked, they hid, they didn't know what to do. They didn't have Walmart or anything like that back in the day. So God created the first set of garments for Adam and Eve. What do we learn from there? When you see somebody naked, you provide them with clothing. In the sense, naked in the sense that when you see somebody who cannot afford clothing, you have to help that person to get clothing. How do we know that? Because God did it for Adam and Eve. They didn't have clothes. They didn't know what to do about it. So God helped them by providing them with clothing. And at the end of the Torah, it says Moses died at the top of the mountain. There was nobody around to bury the body of Moses. So God buried the body of Moses. And from there is a mitzvah. There is a mitzvah. There is no family, no relatives for a body. The Jewish community, the entire body of the Jewish community of the place, they have to provide a burial for that body. And that exists everywhere I went. In Winnipeg, for sure, there is a fund. And there is a rotation among synagogues of who take care of these people that they have no relatives and no money. So nobody goes without, no Jew in Winnipeg goes without a Jewish burial. And that is a tremendous act of chesed, especially in that situation when there is no family. So you don't even have other people to thank you for what you do. So when I see those funerals, because I've done some of those funerals, and when I see the pallbearers coming, and when I see the people who spend all night taking care of that body, and nobody went to say thank you to them because there is no family, those are actually the acts of true kindness, the true chesed. So if you ever want to volunteer, if you live in Winnipeg, if you ever want to volunteer in the Chesed Shelemes, they're always looking for volunteers. There are many families that they don't have enough people for pallbearers to hold the coffin when we have funerals. Or there is also what is called the tahara, which is the washing of the body. And it's a very sacred function. If you want to be part of that group, just let us know at the office. We're always asking for volunteers. And you should know that when you do that, when you fulfill that mitzvah, is the highest level. Phyllis Laveman, you say, The Shomrim. Yeah, the Shomrim are the people who stayed with the body all night. The body cannot be by itself. Okay. Let's continue. I have one more. No, actually, that was the last one that I had for this topic. The topic of Chesed. Now I want to continue with something else that we learned from the first verse that I mentioned. Let me read it. Let me show you one more time. Remember, this was the text that we saw at the very beginning. We already learned from here how to make a promise in those days, to put in the hand under the thigh, and it wasn't necessarily the thigh, but it's more polite to leave it like that. Okay. Then we know about the request of Jacob to Joseph to do Chesed and Emet, kindness and truth. It means that it's a request of taking care of his body. Okay. And then do not bury me in Egypt. And that's why you will see what happened is when Jacob died, his body was embalmed and then moved into the land of Israel, and he was buried there. It was embalmed because it was considered a disrespect for the body to decay before he had an opportunity to be buried in the cave, the cave of Machpelah. That was the name of the burial place. Karen Farkas, you said, I stayed all night with both my father and with my brother after they died. Yeah, this is an amazing mitzvah. But again, it doesn't have to be a relative. You can actually contact your local Chesed Shelemes, and they're always looking for people who wants to stay all night with a body. Some people even take it a step further, and they actually read Tehillim. They read chapters of the book of Psalm while as they take care of the body. That's another tradition. Okay. Yeah. So, the other thing is, okay, Jacob is about to die, but then there is something very interesting, and the rabbis also talk about the beginning of this verse. It says, "And the days of Jacob or Israel drew near to die." I don't know about you, but it's a very weird way to say that this guy was about to die. It's very weird. It's not a classic way to say that somebody's about to die. It says, "And the days of Israel drew near to die." Weird grammar. So about that, Midrash Rabbah says, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, "The days of the righteous die, but they do not die." It does not say an Israel drew near to die, but the days of Israel drew near to die. In the sense that what the text is implying, that when we are talking about the righteous person, the description of the death implies that, yeah, that person won't be physically on this earth anymore. The days that the person used to walk this earth are gone, but that is the only thing that is gone from that person. Is that clear? It's a beautiful verse. It's a beautiful thing. And it's interesting because the rabbis present even more proof to say that when we are talking about righteous people, the only death they suffer is the physical death, but they continue living in a different way. And I'm not talking about just the Olam Haba, the world to come, right? I'm not talking about the spiritual life that they enjoy somewhere else that we don't know where it is or how that happened. You know what I mean? I'm talking about a different kind of life here on this earth. It's something that sometimes we call legacy or spiritual legacy, something that it could be perceived in the world even after the person is no longer there. Sometimes you see it on their children, sometimes you see it or you experience it on the people who were around that righteous person for many years. right? So it's a very interesting concept. But as I told you before, the rabbis find in this same parsha more proofs about that. Let me explain. So far I share with you Genesis 47:29. Remember? Now I'm going to jump ahead to 49:33. And this is talking about the specific moment when Jacob died. What does it say here? It says, when Jacob finishes his instructions to his sons, because he was talking, okay, let's back up a little bit. Jacob was talking to he called up all his sons one by one, and he was actually giving them the final piece of advice before he left this world. It's kind of typical. Everybody that knows that he or she is about to die, they sometimes do this. They call their children and they give them a special message. They say something specific to each one of them and so forth. I've seen that. I've seen that many times. So Jacob did that. He called them one by one. When you read it from the Torah, sometimes it sounds kind of harsh. But actually what he was trying to do is to help them succeed. Jacob was familiar with all the virtues and the flaws of his children. So he was actually trying to help them by pointing out their flaws so they can overcome that and become better people. So it's interesting. It's so negative. He's telling them about everything that is wrong about them. Well, he's telling them, look, you're great, but you still have to work on this, and this if you want to do better. Shelly Chochinov, you said here, is that unfinished business? I will say this is part of the same business. It's the last piece of advice. This last piece of advice, and that they have for him. So okay, so let me read it. When Jacob finished now his instructions to his sons, all this speech, he drew his feet into the bed and passed away. He was gathered to his people. Okay, so what do we learn from here? One of the things that we learned from the description of all the death of the patriarchs in the Torah is that the verse seems to imply that there is a world to come. There is another place where the dead go to live when they leave this world. Okay? How do we know that? Because it says that Jacob passed away and he was gathered to his people. What do you mean he was gathered to his people? He was still there. And he wasn't buried until a few more weeks. So what does it mean that he was gathered to his people? The explanation that the rabbis give here is that as soon as he died, his soul, his spirit, was gathered with the souls, with the spirits of his ancestors. Still doesn't say anything of where, how, and all those questions that we always have. But nevertheless, it implies that such place exists. Okay? Shelley, you said, yeah, the neshama, the soul. The soul was gathered to his people. I mean, you could understood this as physically, right? That his body was buried in the same place that Abraham and Isaac, so that's what it means, that he was gathered to his people. But yeah, it's going to happen in the future, but not now. Not now. This is a description of the death itself. So it implies that there is a place where the souls go. Okay? But there is something else. The expression here that it says, you see, he passed away. What does it mean that he passed away? And why is that such an important part of the verse? I mean, it's obvious. We are talking about the death of Jacob. What is so weird that it says that he passed away? We'll see, because the Talmud, actually, they take some time to talk about it. let's start from the beginning. I'm quoting here the Babylonian Talmud, Masechet Ta'anit, page 5b, and it says, after they had eaten, Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Yitzchak said to Rabbi Nachman that Rabbi Yochanan said as follows. And this is very common from the rabbis. They will always quote somebody else. Our patriarch Jacob did not die. What? Didn't we just read about that? Right? And then Rabbi Nachman had the same attitude. Rabbi Nachman asked him in surprise, and was it for naught that the eulogizers eulogized him? Yeah, of course. If you go back to the Torah, you keep reading, you see that he was eulogized and embalmed, right? That the eulogizers eulogize him, and the embalmers embalmed him, and the buriers buried him. We read about that. What are you talking about that Jacob didn't die? Rabbi Yitzchak replied to Rabbi Nachman, I am interpreting a verse. As it is stated, therefore do not fear, Jacob my servant, says the Lord. Neither be dismayed, Israel, for I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. This is from Jeremiah. So this verse juxtaposes Jacob to his seed. So basically what it says that the name of Jacob and the descendants of Jacob are in the same place. So they are one next to the other. So what this rabbi learns from this is just as his seed or his descendant is alive when redeemed, so too Jacob himself is alive. Okay? So this is very interesting, and this is one explanation that the rabbi presented to say that Jacob did not die. But then the rabbis bring even more proof to try to explain that Jacob didn't die. And it comes from the way his death is narrated in the Torah. One way to prove that is to compare the description of the death of Jacob with the description of the death of Isaac and Abraham. Okay? And before I do that, I want to answer Karen here. Karen, you say, I thought the soul hung around until the end of Shiva. Well, it's like an in-between, but it's already part of the Olam Haba, the world to come. The world to come is almost like has different layers, different levels, but it's already considered the world to come, the place where the souls go. And at least this is something that we describe in those ways, so we can kind of grasp or understand the concept that is technically impossible to understand, because it's impossible for us finite human beings to define, imagine, or understand a world that has no time or space. And I don't want to get any more philosophical than that. It's virtually impossible to imagine how is the world to come. So we put names, we use labels or descriptions like the soul hung around until the end of Shiva. But you understand how words are not appropriate to describe something that is impossible to describe. Okay? Just imagine for now that what we are talking about is that when we leave this world, we enter to a different realm that has different levels. Okay? And the entry level is what we call hang around until the end of Shiva, but it's already the world to come. Okay? So I was talking about that our duty is to compare the description of the death of Jacob with the descriptions of the death of Abraham and Isaac. So let's do that. First, Abraham. When we read about the death of Abraham, it says, this was the total span of Abraham's life, 175 years. And Abraham passed away and died at a good ripe age, old and contented, and he was gathered to his kin. His son Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, facing Mamre. Okay, but let's focus here on just a description of the death. It says Abraham passed away and died. Hold on a minute. What did we say about Jacob? Passed away. But it doesn't say and died. In Hebrew, it's pretty clear. For Abraham, it says Vayigva Vayamot. Vayigva Vayamot. Vayigva is translated here as passed away. Yamot is translated as died. If we go back to the verse, what does it say? Vayigva. It doesn't say it Vayamot for Jacob. It still says for Abraham that he was gathered to his kin, which is the same description of Jacob's death. That part is the same, but it does not say, it adds the word Vayamot, and that is huge. But let's see what happened with Isaac. Isaac was 180 years old when he passed away and died. He was gathered to his kin. That is the same. That part is the same. He was also gathered to his relatives. But if you can see here, Vayigva Yitzchak Vayamot. The Hebrew will be the same of Abraham. Vayigva and Vayamot. But again, it's not that way with Jacob. So the rabbi said, what's the difference between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Abraham and Isaac, they were both tzaddikim, they were both righteous people. So why, knowing that they're righteous people, why is the Torah saying that they died? If we know that the tzaddik, the righteous person, doesn't die. Their legacy stayed in this world. And we know that's true for Abraham, Isaac, and of course also Jacob. We remember them every day in our prayers. They are part of the Jewish tradition, so we know that they are alive. So why is the Torah using the word Vayamot? They died. And it's, the rabbis understand that it's a way to describe that what happened with their descendants. Remember that the Talmud, when the Talmud is talking about Jacob, the Talmud says basically, I will read it here, just as his seed is alive when redeemed, so too Jacob himself is alive. So in other words, only if the seed of a person is alive, the person is alive. What does it mean? Only if the descendants of a person keeps that legacy alive, then a person does not die. So what happened with Abraham? Well, Abraham had Isaac, who kept alive Abraham's legacy. But what happened with Ishmael? Ishmael broke with all that legacy from Abraham. He created something else. He created a different thing. But it was not part of Abraham's legacy the way we understand it. So we understand, and the rabbis understand, that with that decision, part of Abraham died. Not all his seed continued with Abraham's legacy. Only one, Isaac. And because of that decision, part of their father died. Okay? Same happened with Isaac. With Isaac was exactly the same. When he died, only Jacob continued with his legacy. Esau did not. So part of Isaac died with that decision of Esau of not continuing the legacy of his father. So that's why the Torah says about Abraham and Isaac, Vayigva Vayamot, they passed away. They physically stopped breathing, right? The heart wasn't beating anymore. They passed away physically. But also there was some kind of death to their legacy. But it does not say that about Jacob, because we just read that all the children of Jacob confirmed their commitment to Jacob's legacy. That's why Jacob had the opportunity to call them one by one to his deathbed, to be sure that everybody will continue with his legacy, and everybody will know what they have to work out about themselves, what they have to change, to be sure that his legacy will remain alive. So he has that kind of conversation with the children, and they all assume that responsibility to continue with Jacob's legacy. So eventually, when there was a time when Jacob passed away, but his legacy did not die. And that's why we all Jews are called Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. And as long as we remember and we stay committed to the legacy of our patriarchs and matriarchs, they're going to stay alive. And the same happened with things that we receive from our parents, grandparents. If there is somebody who can continue that legacy, they are still alive. But it's up to us. It's up to us to do it. Okay? And yeah. Okay. So I think we can stop here. This is a good moment to start. Instead of, I was going to start with a new topic, but we don't have time for a new topic right now. So yeah. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for making yourself a little bit of time this afternoon to study Torah. Remember, as we study in this class, 3 pillars in the world: Torah, prayer, and act of kindness. I hope you can incorporate all of those 3 things in your life every day. So remember, if you like this class, give me the thumbs up. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can always hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to our channels, please do subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, and then after hitting the subscribe button, remember to hit the bell so you will be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something to our channels. Remember, this class is going to be restreamed tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. Yep, Central Time. We are streaming from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. My name is Rabbi Anibal. I'm the spiritual leader of Congregation Shari Zedek. And again, it's a great pleasure to be here. Karen Farkas, you have a question. Can you briefly explain again Jewish time from stand up to sundown? So Jewish time, yeah, Jewish time is talking about the hours of the day. So basically, what you do is you take all the time, the time that you have of light time during a day, from sunrise to sunset. You take that time and you split it into 12 equal segments. Each one of those segments is called an hour. But depends. If you are in the middle of the winter or in the middle of the summer, each one of those segments are going to be different. Right? But nevertheless, according to halakha, according to Jewish law, each one of those segments is called a Jewish hour. And when the Talmud said, for example, yeah, you can say the morning prayers up to the, I don't know, 3, don't quote me because I don't know if it's truth, but 3 hours in the morning, it doesn't mean 3 60-minute hours. It means 3 of those segments. So if it's in the middle of the winter, that time the 3 Jewish hours going to be way shorter than 3 hours in the middle of the summer. So that's why you need an app to give you the time for the called Sha'a Zemanit for each one of the days. Okay. Phyllis Leifman. Yeah, I will. We have a concert for Simpkins Center in about an hour. So I hope to see you all again. I'm going to rest my throat a little bit and then a concert in an hour. Thank you so much again. And if you want to replay the class again, we are going live again with a repetition tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon.